Happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to Radio Free Rhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm. And I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mr. Martin Kemp.
Hello, Norm.
Hello, Martin. Did I say your name right?
Well enough.
How would you say it?
Martin Kemp.
Martin, because you're not from here. You're from like Brooklyn or Queens or someplace.
That's right. Yeah, well guessed.
Staten Island.
Born and bred.
Born and bred. we don't hear about the bread part. It's a family show. But where were you born, actually?
I was born in a small town. Well, actually, it's now a city called Southend-on-Sea. Recently designated a city.
Southend-on-Sea?
Yes, in Essex, just outside London.
Oh, south.
Yeah.
All right, so it's sort of in the greater London metropolitan area.
No, I think most residents of Southend-on-Sea would be offended by that suggestion. But it is a commuting town. People do tend to work in London and commute on the trains.
And did you live there all through your youth?
I lived there until I was 18, and then I went up to University of York.
Which is up north somewhere.
North. Yes, the original York. And then I moved to the new one some years later.
Now, some people had said that you're actually a fake Englishman and that you're just pretending to be English.
Damn it!
So I prepared a little quiz here. To get us going? Yeah, to make sure that you're a real Brit. You ready?
I did not clock that he had printed notes.
Oh yeah. All right, here we go. We zip through it. I got like 20 questions. What's the name of the potato product people often eat with a burger?
Chips.
That's right. What's the address of the Prime Minister?
10 Downing Street.
Who lives there now?
Well, currently it's Richie Sunak.
That's right. Brexit, yay or nay?
Nay. Oh my God.
All right, in Cockney rhyming slang, what does it mean to have a bit of the old J. Arthur?
I have no idea.
After J. Arthur Rank. All right.
What do you mean you have B.O.?
What does bottle and stopper mean? Also Cockney rhyming slang.
Absolutely no idea.
Copper. Marmite or Vegemite? Trick question.
Both are awful.
Oh, all right. Good. We'll take that answer. What brand of baked beans do you buy?
Well, there's only one. Surely. The Heinz.
That's right.
Yeah.
What kind of thing is a dairy milk? And who makes it?
Oh, it's Cadbury's, and it's a chocolate.
That's
and again, it's a superior chocolate to any made in the US. Although, unfortunately, now owned by Hershey's.
All right, where would you go in England to place a bet on something?
A betting shop.
Such as?
Williams.
Perfect. Name one brand of beer that they would call bitters.
Wow, now you are testing my knowledge.
I know, it's a tough
one. The Black Sheep would be my
I'll take
go-to.
it. I don't even know the answer to that.
There's many, but for some reason...
Who was the best James Bond actor ever?
Well, you are... I'm a Timothy Dalton fan. I think Roger Moore was appalling. But in a good way, like bad appalling. But we could talk about this for about 3 hours.
Well, they're both incorrect.
Who's correct?
Who is the best English soccer player of all time?
I don't care. I mean, supposedly George Best, I guess.
Wrong. They don't play soccer in England. Best footballer of all time? George Best.
Yes, sure.
All right. Name a popular food served at afternoon tea.
The scone.
What do British call cookies?
Biscuits.
Who makes hobnobs?
McVitie's.
Who makes rich tea biscuits?
Also McVitie's, I think.
In what part of the car would you stow a spare tire, a suitcase, or, say, golf clubs?
The boot.
The boot. One quotable quote from Winston Churchill.
Oh, we'll fight them on the beaches.
Okay. What does it mean to be skint?
You're broke.
Who had an album called Nevermind the Bollocks?
That was the Sex Pistols.
All right. Pronounce this word.
Oregano.
Love that. What kind of foil would you use to wrap leftovers up in?
Tin foil
or
aluminium foil.
That's what we're looking for. And last question: who would win in a fight, Chaucer or Dickens?
Chaucer.
I think so too.
Yeah. I think he's got more panache.
All right, good. You did really well.
Thank you.
I think that should settle the debate amongst the skeptics. You're truly British. So you grew up there 18 years in whatever, Salton-on-Sea. What was it called?
Southend.
Southend. Oh, Southend.
Southend.
Thank you so much for translating for me.
Yes, you're welcome.
And then you went to York. Why did you choose York of all the places you could have gone to?
It was the one that would let me in. Yeah.
Did you have not the most stellar academic career? And
I am the perpetual B grade student. I rarely got an A. I almost always got Bs. So that rather excluded me from the more prestigious universities. And also, I had few talents. So I had no idea what I wanted to study, and eventually I settled on philosophy. And I applied to a few places, and the one that was my first pick wanted me to get an A and 2 Bs, and then York wanted me to get, I don't know, 2 Bs and a C or something at my A levels, as we call them. And I did not get the A and 2 Bs, and so I went to York. But that ended up being a very happy place for me. So it did not end sadly.
And did you spend 4 years there?
I spent 3. Yeah, so 3 years for a bit. I did a bachelor's degree.
Okay. In philosophy?
In philosophy, yeah.
And how was that? Did you enjoy that?
I loved it. It was great. I got to sit around and pontificate. I got to read a lot. I got to argue with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to, wander around with an aloof kind of confidence that was quite becoming for a man in his late teens.
Very good. And so did you have to, I mean, I know there's some differences between school over in England and here in the U.S.
Sure.
But did you have to write like a thesis or anything?
Actually, I chose a module in my last year where I did. It was called, I don't know, a self-study module or something. I got to pick what it was and work directly with a tutor on it, and so that was quite fun. I got to do that.
And a tutor would be a professor, or
professor. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or an adjunct professor or something.
Yes.
And so, what was the module?
Well, I ended up doing it on philosophy of language, and particularly on how we ascribe meaning to words and what meaning is, and particularly in a kind of social context. How do I know it that when you're talking about a microphone, that you were talking about the same thing I think you mean?
Okay.
And so my thesis ended up being around something called the principle of charity.
The principle of charity.
Yeah, which I think was originally introduced by a guy called Quine, but now you're stretching. This was so long ago. I enjoyed it. It was good, and I had a good time. And I don't think I really uncovered anything new, but I did consider sticking with it and staying in academia.
New for you, anyway.
Yeah, new for me, of course. Right. Yeah.
And when you considered sticking with it, what would that have been? Like, sort of gone on to an advanced degree?
Yeah, exactly. I enjoyed it so much. I was weighing up between that and what I ultimately ended up doing, which was going to drama school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drama school.
Yes.
So back to this theory of charity thing. What can you sort of give me the top?
Yeah.
Level,
so basically, it's wow. I should have studied up. So
we could make the drinks.
We
now
should probably make
want.
the drinks. So I mean, the fundamental principle comes around this idea of like you triangulate meaning. So and the principle of charity particularly was about me giving you the best possible chance of being right. So instead of kind of just, there was in the skeptical kind of model of philosophy of language where you sort of doubt everything and you kind of start doubting the real world. Like instead of that, you start kind of from the basis that if you give everything the best chance of being correct, you can kind of actually build a much better model of reality. If there's any philosophers listening, they are probably like loading their guns up, ready to come after me. But that's fundamentally what it was.
It's also a much kinder conversation, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of, yeah. But I think it's a little bit, maybe it's a layer below that in the sense of, when you say a word like conversation or kind of conversation, that gives, I am interpreting that in a certain kind of way, and I'm trying to interpret that, generally speaking, in the same way that you would. I think it's actually really relevant at the moment because I think the whole notion of truth in media and what a fact is kind of under scrutiny, and so it's kind of quite a sort of pertinent subject area.
Yeah, it is, and you bring that up, and whatever Reagan did away with the fairness doctrine, which sort of like kept the media on the level, on not making shit up. And now it's a huge problem. Everybody has these sources in a different way.
Yeah.
You work for Google, which I believe has some sort of plan to. Do you know about this?
No, go ahead.
I read this today. I was looking at Google. Google, Meta, and other social media platforms propose alliance to combat misinformation.
Well, that sounds good, doesn't it?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's such if it could actually work, there's always going to be people who are like, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Because they won't have this, the principle of charity.
Well, exactly.
That you do.
Yeah.
But, we've sort of squandered that principle of charity lately with these sort of polarized news sources.
Yeah, I think that's a fair analysis. Yeah.
Ugh. All right. So you decided not to do that for some reason. Was it because the theater was calling you?
Yeah, it was. It was. I think at that point in my life, I remember having a conversation with my parents about it, where I was kind of weighing up, because the professor that I was working with in that last year was encouraging me to stay and do a master's, and meanwhile I'd spent most of my university years working with the Drama Society, doing lighting design for them, and that's what I was enjoying that so much. And I kind of felt like I was at this point where I could choose between doing something sensible, like a master's, and doing something thrilling and exciting, like going to London and studying lighting design at the world's leading drama institution. And so I chose that instead.
And where is the world's leading drama institution?
The Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Wow.
Yeah, which is vastly superior to Lambda. Yeah, which is the other one.
Okay.
And Central.
I see.
Awful.
There's a little rivalry there.
Of course, yeah.
So is that actually more sensible than a master's in philosophy?
No, it wasn't, because as you might know as an actor yourself, making money in theatre is virtually impossible, whereas having a master's in a fairly prestigious academic subject can be lucrative.
Is it? That seems like a pretty tough road to hoe as well.
Well, I think the wonderful thing about philosophy is it's actually, as it turns out, has been one of the more in-demand degrees for
I'm shocked.
in technology. Yeah.
In technology?
Yeah, once you're outside of computer science, of course.
Right.
Your philosophy students are not uncommon at lots of major tech firms. Yeah.
Huh. So I mean, you're working in technology now.
Yeah.
Working at Google, and do you think about philosophical questions often in the course
All
of
the
your work?
time.
Really?
Yeah.
Give me an example.
The job, it's not what I'm doing at the moment, but what I was doing in the past was thinking a lot about how people work together and what people need to have, for instance, a productive meeting or to be able to collaborate with each other.
Uh-huh.
And so I spent a lot of time thinking about language and the way in which we communicate and what you need to actually effectively communicate an idea. And it's often more than words. You sometimes need visual elements. You need non-verbal cues like hand gestures and that kind of thing. They're all really important to how we express an idea and how we also reduce unconscious biases and things like that. If you can't see people properly, you tend to maybe discount their ideas. So lighting becomes strangely important, particularly for people with maybe darker skin tones, for instance. And so there's all kinds of these things which can happen when you're kind of meeting with people and talking with them and trying to be creative and collaborative with them, where the environmental factors kind of start kind of impinging on your ability to do that successfully or not. And so I spent my first role at Google was around trying to dig into that a little bit more and try and design meeting rooms and meeting spaces that would allow for more equitable sorts of collaboration. And so fundamentally, those are philosophical questions.
Wow. But I would guess also sort of like neurological questions and psychological questions.
Yeah. I for a while I got to work with a wonderful guy called Aaron, he was a UX researcher who has a doctorate in a particular field of philosophy, and he and I would have the best conversations because I'm an amateur, absolute amateur compared to him, and we'd talk about, there's a very popular concept at the moment called the external mind or extended mind, which is this idea.
What did you say first? The exto mind?
It's called the extended mind. So it's this idea that when I stand up at the whiteboard and I'm writing things down, or if I'm writing stuff in a journal, or that is actually an extension of your own mind,
right?
It is just as valid as the things that you store in your head. And so we would have all kinds of conversations about how we could bring that kind of thinking and the lessons from thinking about minds in that way to work.
Wow. That sounds wildly interesting.
It is. And that's why I love working at Google, because I get to meet and work with these insanely smart people and talk about these wonderful kind of ideas. And I find it extremely rewarding.
And you've been there how long?
Coming up on 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you interviewed there, were they very interested in your degree in lighting?
Actually, a
Did you
little
degree in
bit.
philosophy?
A little bit. They were mostly interested in my knowledge of the area, so kind of audio-visual technology and WebRTC and stuff like that, which is the back end to virtually every Google Meet, Zoom call, everything you've ever had. Any conversation you've ever had online, WebRTC is at the back end of that. So they were interested in my knowledge of those kind of tools because they wanted to kind of test my technical chops, I guess, when I was interviewing.
Tentacle chops?
My technical chops.
Oh, technical chops.
Yeah.
And what did you say, WebRTC?
Yeah.
What is that?
You do really want to know? I mean, it's... All right. Well, it's a...
Matt's shaking his head, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, at least one of us does.
Matt could probably explain it better than I could. It's an open source technology that basically is for the real-time... It stands for Web Real-Time Communication. And it is basically a protocol, effectively. I think a protocol would be the right word, right? It's a protocol? Yeah. Just checking with Matt, the real expert. That allows you to transmit audio and video in real time between two endpoints.
Okay. So, and it's open source.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
It means that the source code behind it all is available online for anyone to look at or contribute to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so people can go in and find the source code. Is there a master place where it lives?
Yeah, probably GitHub, I would imagine, where most open source stuff lives.
And you can mess with it, hopefully improve it.
Yeah, exactly.
Did people ever sort of like make it worse on purpose?
I would imagine that's
Sabotage?
happened. Yeah, I can't think of any instances. But it's thematically, it's like a lot of these ones, the large ones like WebRTC, there's like a sort of canonical kind of version of it and there are people who are making sure that there's code that gets submitted.
NSA.
Yes, and the NSA, for instance, because obviously these things have become like part of like the backbone of how we communicate, how business happens. So there's a lot of scrutiny around these kind of tools now. Yeah,
A lot of scrutiny from everybody, including government agencies.
Yeah.
And what are they looking for?
Nefarious acts, I'd imagine. I'm not an expert in
people
this
trying to sabotage these open source things.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a risk.
Huh.
And it's also like an unintentional risk as well. There are plenty of libraries, like little kind of handy utilities that are maintained by like one guy in Australia, and yet the entire of like the cloud infrastructure we rely on is like built on this one thing. There's been a couple of examples recently of people who have been like, hey, I'm not getting any money for maintaining this thing, and like every large like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, everyone's like using this thing, and it's being maintained by this by this one guy. And so that's getting a lot more scrutiny, and there's a lot of efforts at the moment to try and make that a little bit more robust.
If it's being maintained by this one guy, in Australia, say, does he have any sort of rights to it? Any proprietary rights?
No, that's the complexity of it because of the way in which licensing works.
He just sort of maintains it like somebody would sort of maintain a Wikipedia page.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And make sure that people are adding good things and take away stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah, and if you buzz back, 20 years, 25 years in the history of the internet, like this was kind of normal, like, and fine. And now suddenly, because of like the layering of kind of the tools that we use, like someone built a tool and then someone built a tool on top of that tool and then someone built another tool on top of that tool, like the chain, like as you look through all of the different bits and pieces that are in that thing that you're using, it's like, it could be fun to thousands of layers deep.
So this guy's just been maintaining it forever and ever.
Yeah.
And what if he gets tired of that? Is somebody else going to take over? Or
well, exactly.
Why can't he get paid for that? And who would pay him?
Well, because exactly, those are good questions.
And I'm going to guess there's a whole department at Google that looks into questions like that.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
And what is your department called?
Mine is called. I'm part of an internal team called CorpEng, which is like internal Google IT. CorpEng. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's an engineering team, and we build and maintain kind of. We're Google's internal IT guys, basically.
Okay.
So it's support and making sure people are productive and all that kind of thing.
CorpEng.
Yeah.
And how often do you go into the Google office?
Varies massively. Varies a lot.
Yeah.
Like past couple of weeks I haven't been in much because I've been working on a very big project, and it's been with a lot of people who are not in New York, and so it's been easier for me to work from home. But typically, I would go in more frequently.
Do you consider yourself to be googly?
I think I got a nice compliment from my colleague the other day, which was like, "Oh, Martin, you like the old Google," which I thought was
The old Google.
yeah.
And how do you define googly?
I think just wow. This is like there's a whole kind of this is a wonderful question that provokes much debate internally.
Courtesy of my friend Isabel, who works at Google.
Yeah. I think it's many things, and it's mostly openness and trying to be considerate of what the implications and the outcomes of your actions might be, and trying to think through the entire problem and not just thinking about making money or trying to get a promotion. You're trying to do things as a team, and I think it's a lot of stuff like that. It's just being trying to do the right thing.
That's nice. And have you been? I'm guessing you've been to Google offices around the world.
Yeah.
Another question from the same friend. Have you ever been in the hidden speakeasy at the San Francisco office?
I have not.
It sounds pretty good. Yeah, it sounds like a blast. So when you go in, it's 8th Avenue there in the city.
Yeah.
Nice. 111. I used to work in that building.
Did you really?
Way back, the 90s and early aughts.
No way. What did you do? What did you do there?
There was an ad agency there.
No way.
Yeah, Deutsch had their offices there.
Yeah. What kind of ads did you do?
Tire floor. Oh, all kinds, but we're not going to talk about me. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. Look at you looking at your watch. All right, well let's serve the drink. Thank you so much for bringing something. What is it that you brought?
So this is a Sazerac.
A Sazerac, yum.
Yeah, the classic. So sugar cube, some bitters, rye, cognac, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of absinthe.
Oregano.
An oregano. Who's having one?
Oh, me.
Yeah.
So why a Sazerac? Is this one of your favorite drinks to make?
I just like it. Yeah, it's just become a favorite recently, and I was struggling to think about what the hell I was going to make.
Yeah.
And settled on this. I thought it would be inoffensive, and this is just like, I don't have absinthe, so we're having some pastis instead.
Okay.
Is that acceptable? Oh, this one as well.
Sure, it's all okay by me. Mm-hmm. Now, while you're pouring, you're also, intelligence reports, a writer and a musician.
Well, that's an exaggeration.
Oh, is it? a scribbler,
I mean, I can write.
A scribbler and a dabbler?
Yeah, that sounds more like it. Yeah.
And what kinds of things do you write?
I've been writing some small little short stories recently, which will debut in my eventual podcast that I'm going to do at some point.
Podcast, yay!
Yeah, I'm going to join the fray. So yeah.
So you're going to join the fray and read your short stories.
Kind of, yeah. So it's going to be the short stories over the top of some music that I've written, along with music by actually good people who know how to write music. And yeah, that's the kind of the plan. So I don't know. It might be fine. It'll probably be awful. I'm enjoying doing it. It's a nice process, and it's nice to have this here and as a kind of like prompt to kind of get involved.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who cares if it's awful if you're having fun doing it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, here come the Sazeracs.
Yeah.
Yay. So when can people expect to hear this podcast? The music
this is the
and words.
perpetual question. Right?
Music and words by Morton Kemp.
Yeah. I think I'll probably get it done pretty quick now. I'm like.
Thank you.
I'm nearly there with the first. I've done 2 of them. Third one's one on its way. So yeah, I'm getting there.
And do you enjoy the writing?
I do, but it comes in fits and bursts. Like I think you must find this with your monologues as well. Like suddenly, you'll just have it, and it will all come out, and then you're on it, and then and then you'll go a week or two and nothing will happen.
Yeah. I mean, I still do a fair amount of writing for advertising where it's you have to write this, and so you have to do it. You just sit down and just string words together. So when I'm doing the pleasurable writing, it's like whenever I feel like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cheers. Thanks for bringing this chin chin.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
You're okay. All right.
Oh, that is super, super yummy. And that's with pastis.
Yeah.
Instead of absinthe.
That's right.
Which is really good.
Yeah.
All right. So back to your time in the theater. No, it sounds so fascinating. Did you do acting as well?
I did a little. Well, not a drama school, but I did that growing up. So I come from a rather dramatic family, as in amateur dramatics.
I see.
Oh, lovely. And that's how my mum and dad met, in fact, I believe. And, or at least it was a big feature of their early years. And, and so when I was a kid, every year we would do a big pantomime as part of do you know what a pantomime is?
No.
So pantomime is an old, very old European form of theatre, which has a number of sort of tropes, like the village idiot, the dame. You sort of have the principal boy, and there are all of these kind of defined parts, and it's part clowning, part fairy tale, and it's very audience. There's lots of audience participation. So, there's all kinds of classic things. Like there'll be the hero will be in the foreground of the stage, kind of walking along, and the baddie will be in the background, and the audience will shout, "Behind you! Behind you!" And then the hero will be like, "What? What do you mean?" And then look, and then the baddie's gone.
Is it scripted?
Yeah, it's all scripted. Yeah.
I want to see one.
Yeah, they're an institution, and they're very they're often timed around sort of the holidays and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, you should put one on right here at the Morton Memorial.
Maybe I will.
That'd be amazing.
So I grew up doing those, and I started out in the band, and then I got fascinated with the lights that my Uncle Nigel was doing, and
Uncle Nigel.
He was the leader of the band and the lighting designer.
Frightfully English.
Yeah, wonderful.
Uncle Nigel.
Yeah, and so.
So you were doing that and doing some acting, and then later on, how long was the theater program for lighting?
It was meant to be a year and a term. I dropped out after a year for a variety of reasons. Mostly, I loved it. I had a great time. It was not value for money in terms of education.
Okay.
In my last, the guy who when I signed up and I started the course, there was this wonderful teacher. He was a guy called Matt Jury. He was a brilliant lighting designer. He was really kind. He was really funny, and I really wanted to study with him. It looked like a really interesting opportunity. And he left after a term, and then they had a term without a teacher, and so we were kind of just sort of like the director of the theatre, the drama school was sort of subbed in, and he'd worked in theatre a while back. A lighting design a while back, but he wasn't exactly. He had so many other responsibilities. He wasn't exactly present.
Right.
So I spent a term kind of being like, "What am I doing here? I'm having a great time, but I'm not really learning anything." And then they finally hired in a guy who was one of the most appalling lighting designers I've ever met, where I felt like I was like having to teach him how to do stuff. And so I was like, this is ridiculous. And so I wrote them a letter and I said, "Look, I'm paying money. I'm massively in debt. I've done this is my 4th year of education. I'm not getting anything from this. I'm gonna quit." So that's what I did. And I kind of regret it in a way. I feel like I should have stuck around, because it would have been nice to have at least got the, certificate at the end. And but there you go.
So you quit. Where did you go?
I didn't really have a plan that summer. And then I kind of, through some fortunate connections, landed a temporary job at a bank that had a TV studio, and they needed a lighting cameraman. And I thought, I can do that. And they were going to pay me real money instead of trying to work for basically, because I tried to be a production electrician for a while in the West End, and no one wanted to hire me and I couldn't really afford it. And it, for some reason, it didn't occur to me to get a roommate and try and get another job and then try and make it. That strangely didn't occur to me at the time. So instead I moved back home to my parents and then, and then managed to land this job at this bank. And that was great. And then they kept on offering me more money and more interesting things. And then...
Such as?
I ended up running the TV studio.
Sounds amazing. So you're like 24 or whatever.
Yeah, I think 22, 23, yeah. And then, maybe 24. And then they started asking me to kind of do more technology stuff. And it was at the time, video streaming was starting to become a thing. And they needed people who could bridge between audio, video, lighting world and technology world. And that came very naturally to me. So that's how I ended up kind of getting sucked into professional IT stuff.
And what was the name of this bank?
Morgan Stanley.
Oh, I heard of that.
Yeah, I heard of those guys.
And so did you sort of move up the ranks at Morgan Stanley?
I did, yes. I started out as a contractor, and then 10 years later, I was their VP of Unified Communications. So.
VP of Unified Communications.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I'm working over in New York, yeah.
So when did you move to New York from?
It was 2011.
Were you in London?
I was in London. So I lived in London. So when I kind of had a steady job and real income, I moved up to London with my best friend, and we lived together in a flat near Waterloo Station, and had a wonderful time being sort of single and miserable and not knowing how to meet women and being awkward.
And miserable. Yeah.
But having a good time.
So then 2011 you moved to New York.
Yeah.
And they came to you and said, "Hey, we got a job there.
Yep.
We want you to take it."
Yep.
And you're like, "Yeah, hell yeah. I'm single and miserable and can't
I wasn't
meet
single
women."
at the time. Yeah, I got married.
I see.
And then
you did?
Yeah. I was with my partner at the time, and we decided that we wanted to go to New York, do America together, and so getting married felt like the right thing at the time.
Okay.
Turned out maybe wasn't the right thing.
So that she could come over as well, and not have visa issues.
Exactly.
And
It
stuff.
felt like an adventure.
And what kind of work did she get?
She couldn't for a little while because of the nature of visas and things. But she found her way. Yeah.
And where did you land when you came to New York City?
I think we landed in JFK, and then we got a cab, and it was raining. It was bucketing it down with rain. Our first apartment was on West 48th Street.
Okay, that's what I meant. Like, where did you land living-wise?
Yeah.
West 48th Street.
Yeah, right on Times Square. It was absolutely horrifying. I mean, it was like a baptism of fire.
Like 48th and 8th, kind of?
48th and 8th, yeah. I think it was 48th and 8th, yeah.
Egads.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, welcome to New
right
York.
Right in the thick of it, yeah. And it was a fun... We had a fun few... I mean, we weren't there for too long. We were only there for a couple of months, I think, and then we moved out to Prospect Heights.
Okay.
Which was a bit more calm.
Nice. And do you still live in New York part-time?
No, I'm here full-time now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you no longer have a flat there?
No longer have a flat there.
Yeah.
I gave that up as soon as I could.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
And now you live more or less right around the corner from the studio, which is great, allowing us to keep the hyper-local flavor of the show.
I couldn't be more local.
Yeah. So when you go to the city for days, do you go for days at a time?
Yeah, days at a time. Yeah.
And where do you stay?
I often stay at a friend's. Yeah.
No, it's just, I just wondered if like Google had
No.
company apartments or...
Yeah. It varies. It depends what's going on. But sometimes I'll do a day trip, sometimes stay with a friend.
Right. Awfully convenient.
Very convenient.
That's just great. Well, good for you. And the thing it said, I'm fascinated by your job there and how it sort of brings together all these talents.
Yeah.
The philosophy and the lighting. And what it said in your thing is project manager building inactive collaboration and co-creation products for our hybrid distributed work future.
Sounds impressive, doesn't it?
It sounds impressive.
I should probably update that. I probably wrote that about a year and a half ago, and it's not what I'm doing now.
Year and a half.
But,
well, that's from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Well, how is that different from what you're doing now?
I'm more at the moment. I'm more focused on how we get people the equipment that they need to do their job. So laptops and that kind of thing, which is actually a more interesting problem than it sounds.
What kind of equipment?
Like, laptops, desktops, monitors, keyboards, mice, all of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So there's a supply chain team that handle like the logistics of that. And then I'm working on the front end. There's an internal product that everyone uses to get the stuff that they need on their desk. And that's the bit that I now am working on.
Huh. Yeah. And so do people have, like, this desk here has probably a dozen different objects.
Yeah.
Electronics and mics and everything sitting on it. How many things does a typical desk need to have in the Google workplace?
Precisely 7 things, Norm.
No, really?
I have no idea.
I totally bought that. I'm like, well, of course he would know the answer to that. But they're different things. They're not all integrated into one.
No, and it varies according to what your job is, right? So someone who's working, for instance, on designing the next Pixel phone is going to need a whole different set of things to someone who's working on selling ads to, working with some of your partners, I'm sure. So you can imagine, like, it's very diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we operate in multiple different countries, so every different country has different regulations and compliance things and different products that are available. So it gets managed across all of those different domains.
Different regulations, not in terms of what you're putting in somebody's desk, but how they interact with or interface with.
MacBooks aren't available in every single country. Chromebooks aren't available in every country. iPhones aren't. So if we're operating in a country where those things aren't available, there have to be other things available that are just as good.
Even that's sort of mind-boggling to me that iPhones are not available in every country.
But actually, Apple products are pretty widely available, I'd say, in most of them. But there's lots there are other things that we have that aren't. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
And so you've been there 6 years. What happens next?
That's a great question.
Do you think about that? Is Google?
I don't. Yeah, I just let it happen.
Well, it sounds like that strategy has sort of worked for you.
Yeah, mostly. I have semi-intentional goals, and then I try not to think too hard about them.
Semi-intentional.
Yeah,
I like that. Care to share some of those?
Yeah, I kind of had.
Audience?
I had a loose goal of going to work at a real tech company instead of at a pretend tech company like a bank, and so that kind of came true. Through some luck and I guess a little bit of hard work, and then I kind of decided that so I got hired as something called a program manager, which is sort of a glorified project manager, and I decided that wasn't really a good fit for me, and I wanted to become a product manager, which is has a very particular role at Google, and I managed to do that about 1.5 years ago. So I had to actually re-interview for that. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
And how did you said the combination of luck that brought you to Google stores in the first place. What was that luck?
I had a wonderful colleague. I still do have a wonderful colleague called Gary who hired me. I worked with him at Morgan Stanley, and he kind of mentored me and was one of the people that kind of shifted me from treating my job like as a casual kind of affair where I was, being given a paycheck and then, I was just young, when you don't really think about work and you just think it as a means to an end. And it made me take it a little bit more seriously and think about actually, there's a career here for you if you want it, and there's opportunity for you, and we think you have, he said, thought I had potential. And so he saw things in me which I didn't really see in myself at the time.
This is a peer at Morgan Stanley?
Yeah, his name is Gary. And so he ended up leaving Morgan Stanley to go and do other things for a bit. We kept in touch, and then he eventually landed, through a few other hops, he eventually landed at Google, and he and I went out for lunch, and we got talking about what he was doing there, and we had a really good conversation, and he was like, do you want, we're going to be hiring soon. Do you want me to see if I can put your name forwards for a role? And I was like, yes, Gary, that sounds wonderful, please. And so then the process was like multiple rounds of interviews and multiple I ended up writing up like my take on where the industry was going and what the opportunities in the space were and all kinds of things like that. And eventually I landed an interview and got hired.
Wait, so you had to write sort of like short essays for the...
I wrote some pitches basically about what I thought was going on in this kind of enterprise AV, as we called it, industry.
Okay.
And or enterprise unified communications, that kind of whole set of things. And he was like, do just write some ideas down and then come in and talk to our big boss, about our director about it. And he liked. I met with the director, and we had a great conversation, and one thing led to another, and eventually I got a job offer. So
amazing. So back to you at Morgan Stanley, and Gary's like, dude, you need to take this shit a little more seriously.
Yeah.
How did that sit with you, having a peer sort of tell you that you should step in and
well,
pay more attention?
He was more senior than me. He was a manager over in. He was working in Hong Kong at the time, and he was a manager over there. And so he, it sat with me well. I think it was at a point in my life where I didn't really have any, real sense of what I wanted to do, and so it was kind of nice to have someone say, "Hey, you've got potential. You can do things." Like,
right.
Not that I didn't have any anyone being negative towards me. It just was that I hadn't really thought about this stuff in any real level of detail, and so it kind of kicked me into thinking about it a bit more. So is this interesting, Norm? Are you interested in this?
I am. Okay. I'm just thinking about that. I mean, because I've been thinking about my life. There were people who were encouraging at the right point in time, or just even like angels bringing me opportunities that steered me in a direction that I wanted to go, or I'm happy I went.
Yeah.
And so that's the topic that interests me.
Gary is certainly one of those people. He's one of the kindest and most interesting people I've ever met, and he was my manager for a while at Google as well, and he gave me phenomenal advice, and I think I've often tried to emulate his approach to things in the way in which I go about my my decision making and the way in which I treat others at work and things like that.
The advice, or the bon mot you care to share?
I mean, it was really more like the advice that he would give was often relevant to the moment that I was in. So
gotcha.
It's like, okay, you've got this problem, we're dealing with this thing, and here's how I would go about it. Or like, actually, he would never say that. He would always ask me questions, and they were always like pointed questions where he was asking them to me because he knew that just the act of me thinking about the answer would probably lead me in the right direction, even if he didn't necessarily know what that direction should be.
Right.
He was just very good at that kind of thing. He was also like a Gestalt kind of like psychoanalysis kind of a guy. And in fact, I think that's what he's going to go and pursue now. So he's leaving
Google.
Yeah, I believe so.
He's going to go become an analyst.
I think so.
A therapist.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. So will you see him professionally in that realm?
Honestly, I've considered it.
Yeah.
I still he and I catch up regularly. So even though out now we're our worlds are like wholly different,
right.
we still talk on a sort of monthly basis. And sometimes he gives me like mentoring kind of advice. Sometimes we just talk about bands that we've seen.
Bands. Yeah. And who are the bands who you like to see?
Oh, I like everything, Norm.
Oh, come on. You're a musician. What do you play?
I play piano. But I used to play drums. And
do you have an actual piano here?
I have an actual piano. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I love playing that. I don't like playing in front of people, but I like playing for myself.
You don't like playing in front of people?
No, I'm not. No, I don't.
Well, did you ever play the piano up at the Morton?
I have touched it. I've pressed the keys. I've never sat and played a piece on it.
But you compose your own music on,
a little bit.
on the piano?
A little bit on the piano, and then I do a lot of electronic kind of stuff as well. Or at least synthesized music, I guess. Yeah.
And did you study piano somewhere?
I did. I studied. I had piano lessons as a kid.
Kid?
Yeah. And I had violin lessons as a kid and clarinet lessons as a kid.
That's great.
All kinds of things.
It was have a whole band.
Yeah, except for I never really became particularly proficient in any of them. I guess piano was the one I was best at. And clarinet I could kind of muddle through. But yeah, I wasn't very good. Yeah.
and do you practice?
I play every day now. Yeah. But I wouldn't say I practice. I play pieces that I like to play, and for me, like playing piano is now that's a gear shift. You know, when you're kind of in a mode and you're like so focused and you're so you're locked into what you're doing, and you need to break out of that. I find piano is very effective for doing that. I kind of sit there, and then suddenly I can't think in like the product manager mindset anymore. I have to think in a much more intuitive and instinctive kind of way, and that is a nice
So it gets the sort of mental roadblocks out of the way.
Yeah, and it's
Opens up
just shifting your brain into a completely different mode. I find it's a way of finding immediate relaxation.
Right.
Yeah, or release anyway.
And do you play mostly your own compositions?
No, I say I'm mostly... I mean, I sit there and I'll improvise, and then sometimes I'll sit there and I'll play pieces. There's a wonderful composer called Peter Broderick and Michael Nyman. I play a lot of his work. And then I'll just knock out a little Bach prelude, you know.
A little Bach prelude. Well, now I want to hear that. Can we get a piano in the studio here?
Like I said, I don't perform.
Oh, you don't. But your neighbors must hear it.
Yeah, but it's distant enough such that I can pretend that it's Raymond playing behind me, you know, like...
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no one's watching me.
And so who are some of your favorite pianists?
I'd say I'm a big fan of Stanislav Richter, who was a wonderful pianist, played a lot of Rachmaninoff and Chopin and other of the greats. At the moment, I'm a big fan of Martha Argerich, who I think is just an incredible pianist. Evgeny Kissin as well. I'm probably pronouncing all of these names horrendously wrong because I just see them on my app.
Well,
you know?
I've never heard them, so that's good.
Yeah.
Huh. And they're all classical pianists?
Yeah, classical, yeah.
No
yeah.
jazz? Or...
I love jazz as well. I mean, I'm a big fan of Bill Evans. I mean, who isn't? Like,
yeah, and
incredible.
Billy Joel.
And Billy, I'm not a big Billy Joel guy. I don't know. I kind of find the music just jarring.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like, I'm really, I can't remember the name of the pianist who played with John Coltrane. My brain is not what it was. But it's, I love jazz.
All right. So you say your brain's not what it was. And I wonder, I mean, everybody experiences that.
Yeah.
Does Google do stuff to help people sort of maximize their brain power?
I wouldn't say it's Google. I mean, like...
Well, I mean, the corporation. I mean, it would benefit them.
Yeah, they give us all
operating.
injections.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
No, but I would think that would sort of fall, under your purview and all of that. What can you do to keep people operating at their own personal peak performance?
Yeah.
Throughout the workday.
Well, we feed all Googlers a very particular diet.
Yeah.
And we make sure they remain hydrated. We have everyone on a drip. And,
hydrated.
Yeah. And
yeah, see,
we
that's
pump
what
morphine in through the air.
That's what system. I thought. I think Terry Gilliam directed that version of Google.
Yeah. No, there's not really much there. I mean, Google's obviously very famous for its, the work environment being extremely nice and having lots of perks and benefits and things. And all of that is very much around both the dual reason of making sure people are happy and also making sure people stick around. So, yeah.
Right, and also more productive.
Yeah.
If they're happy and well-fed, and
exactly.
say well-hydrated.
Exactly. But I don't think it doesn't go down to the level of the individual, here's a meal plan for you, or here's how you should, as an individual, manage your life to make sure you're productive. That's kind of up to the individual.
That's kind of what?
Up to the individual, if that.
Yeah. Wouldn't be bad. I mean, if you could get people to do that. If somebody said, okay, Norm, you get a low-fat diet, you need to drink a lot more fluids and stop goofing off. It wouldn't be bad if they had some sort of...
Sounds like sure. Yeah.
Sure. You don't have to be polite to me, Martin. All right. What else do you want to tell us about your life here? You work on the board of the Morton Memorial Library there.
I do. Yeah.
I see you're the secretary.
The president.
The president.
El Presidente.
Well, you need to fix up your LinkedIn profile, mister.
I don't pay attention to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably the only person who looks at that.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. That's a tough job.
I'm standing on no, it's not. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. There's been an incredible. You've had some of them in here. Obviously Sandy is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And my role is basically make sure Sandy has what she needs. That's basically it.
Right.
And we try and stay out the way of that, but also make sure that she's help clear paths where she needs paths being cleared and that sort of thing. So it's the role is we're really fortunate as a library at the moment. I think if you go back 10, 15 years, there were a lot of problems. and that's entirely been turned around now, and it's an incredible institution with wonderful things happening.
It is.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the people that came before me. I'm just riding on their success, really, surfing that wave that they already set up.
Right, but certainly a part of your job is raising money, helping to raise money for the library.
Yeah. Yeah.
And where does the library funding come from? It gets some from the town, I'm guessing.
So we get some from the town. We also have a yearly appeal, and we have a lot of very generous residents from the entire Rhinebeck and broader area as well, who give through our annual appeal. And we also get a lot of people just donating kind of, at various points through the year as well. So, it's a 501c3, so there's no profit being made, and everything gets pumped back into either maintaining the building, which is an old building, and that sometimes needs work, or into the programs that we're running. And of course, we've got the Makerspace, which just started up last year, which Avery in particular helped set up, and Judy, who runs that, is absolutely phenomenal. And it's been a huge runaway success over the past over the past year, I guess.
And what happens in the Makerspace?
The kids come down, I think it's up to 13, 14 years old, and Judy helps them make all of these wonderful projects, and everything from fake cakes to like stop motion animation to sewing, and all kinds of stuff. And it is the talk of the town, Norm. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it.
Well, maybe I did. Yeah. I'm just asking the question, so my listeners, all 12 of them, can
all
understand
12
what
of the listeners.
Yeah,
if there are any left.
If there's any
I've been
left,
talking to them monotonously.
Yeah, whatever that word is. Thanks for the drink.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sazerac
it's hitting
is
the
yummy.
spot, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, are there big plans for the library? I mean, do they have sort of like grand scheme, like they want to expand, or?
I wouldn't say we want to expand. I think we've got a 3-year plan now, which is mostly focused on trying to continue to support and build the community in Rhinecliff, and also there's a lot of changes happening in this entire area. There's a lot of influx of new people. I'm amongst them, and there's a lot of people who've been here for a long time, and so I think a lot of our role is about making sure that the library is this sort of meeting place where everyone who's here gets to come together and enjoy things. And we're so fortunate with some of the businesses that we get to partner with, like Oblong Books are using our space a lot. We just had Anne Lauterbach in last week, the poet, who's I think a bard, and she just gave this incredible reading of her latest work, and with some really thought-provoking questions from the crowd, and it was rammed in there, and it was just like it was a really cool event. And then we have monologues that you were at, and then with the talent show, and there's just a lot of wonderful things happening. And I hope evaluate myself on sounds too strong, but the thing I try to make sure of is that we have the ability to continue doing that stuff and do more of that stuff, and we seem to be on a good and healthy path with that.
That's great. And the ability to do that, I'm guessing, is mostly financial ability?
Yeah, it's financial ability, and it's also just having the relationships with the local community and with the other businesses around here. And Sandy is absolutely phenomenal at that, and we're extraordinarily lucky to have her.
Yeah, she's spectacular. She seems to say yes to all kinds of projects. Can we do this there? Yes.
Yeah.
Can we have a meeting there? Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And that seems to really keep it very vibrant.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for your service. How long have you been the president?
I think I'm coming up on a year. I think we need to do some elections again soon.
Elections?
Yeah.
Do you think it will be contested?
Yeah, undoubtedly. I think I'm a despot.
Yeah.
No, I think we'll be. Maybe I'll be contested. That would be thrilling, wouldn't it?
Yeah, sure. I might do it just for kicks. No, but there's actual elections for.
It's just the board basically electing kind of
officers.
Officers.
I see.
Yeah.
And how many members are on the board?
At the moment, I think we've got 6. I think it's 6, maybe 7. I should know. I'm not going to count in my head.
Okay,
around that number.
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, back to jolly old England.
Jolly old England.
Growing up, you said your parents were both dramatic. Were
yes.
they, and that they met maybe in a theater production or something?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And were they actors? Is that what they did when you were a youth?
If they're listening, which they almost certainly are.
Really?
I would say I think they probably are.
Hello,
yeah, it's
Mom.
late
Hello,
in the
Dad.
UK. Yeah. but it would not surprise me. They'll at least be listening to the recording.
Right.
Are they actors?
This is the
they're on stage.
toughest question I asked all night.
I mean, they're on stage and they do perform. I think but I think there's. I'm being mean. Yes, they're actors.
But did they do other things, or like are they part of a comedy team? Or?
They're a double act. So I mean, acting for them was their escape, and through which they got this wonderful friendship group. And I think in their youth they put on lots of musicals and things, and they would also kind of do lots of wild and wonderful fun things together. Like I remember this one story where they would, as a group of them would go to a small village somewhere in Essex, and they would all come in from different directions and then kind of gather, and one of them would be the leader. And I think in the story that I recall, it was Dr. Owl's traveling clinic. And so one of them was Dr. Owl, and the rest of them would follow Dr. Owl they'd parade through the village. And Dr. Owl would perform miracle healing on the patients that were following, and they would just process through the town, and everyone be people would open their curtains and look at these weirdos walking through their town, and then they would all get changed out of their costumes and go and hang out in local pubs and try and overhear if people were talking about what just happened. And that was a poor explanation.
But it still sounds kind of wonderful.
Yeah, it was very Monty Python.
So what it sounded like Monty Python.
Yeah.
Was this what they did for their living?
No, this is what they did for fun.
For fun.
Yeah, I think at the time my mum worked in a bank and my dad was, or maybe possibly working in my grandparents' toy shop. That was not what they did for a living. This was pure entertainment for them.
That sounds kind of magical, growing up with grandparents who had a toy shop.
Yeah, it was. I was. I did get to grow up in a toy shop a little bit.
Delightful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we got to wrap it up here in a little bit.
Wow, we've been going an hour?
57 and a half minutes. Uh-oh, Matt's showing you something.
London, yes.
Listener.
Oh, we've got a listener in London.
A listener in London.
So that is almost certainly...
You want to say a shout out to Mom and Dad?
Yeah, hi Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
I guess it's them. It could be somebody else.
Do you have siblings?
Do I have siblings? Yes,
Yeah.
I do have a sister.
Nice. And does she live...
She lives in Toronto.
Oh.
Yeah, and my mum and dad are in fact moving to Canada, at least temporarily. Yeah.
Wow.
For a little while.
From England to Canada.
Biggest move I think they've done. So.
Wow, that sounds like fun. Are they retired now? And
my mum is. My dad likes to pretend he isn't.
Likes to pretend he isn't.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to go out the same way we went in with a couple of questions, just to double check, make sure you are actually English. What is a Malteser?
It's a wonderful and delicious sweet.
Okay.
Where it's malted stuff covered in a chocolate.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
What is the real name of George Orwell?
Oh, I should know this, but I don't. What is it?
Eric Blair.
Oh, that's it.
And what's the pen name of Marianne Evans? I know, this is a tough one.
No idea.
Mom, Dad, any of them sort of like literary types? George Eliot.
I was going to say George Eliot, but I kind of, for some reason... Oh, of course it was. Yes.
Yeah, and who famously said when Social Aid accused him of being drunk, I may be drunk, miss, but in the morning I will be sober and you will still be ugly.
That's a great question. Was that Churchill?
That was Churchill.
Yeah.
And now we're winding down. Martin Kemp, thank you so much for being here. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Have a happy Friday. Thanks for listening to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. Does the music start now? Do I need to talk for another 20 seconds?
I can talk for 20 seconds.
Oh, good.
About any topic. Give me a topic and I'll talk about
it. Did you use bourbon or rye?
I use rye in this drink. Yeah.
It's super delicious. Thank you so much. And it's totally doing the trick.
You're most welcome.
See you soon, Martin. Thanks for coming in.
Cheers.